Hi, welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you are a current subscriber. Today I'm analyzing the body language of Hardy Wills-Traxler, and this interrogation footage comes from a channel called The Interrogation File, so let's get into it.
Dispute later about who said what or what was said, right? Because, you know, like I said, we're just here to gather the facts, right? Not really, not gonna try to mess with you or anything, okay? That's not our style. Fair enough?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to read your rights, though, okay? Since you were brought in by the officers, all right?
All right.
Are you wanting to speak with me at this time?
A few things to note right off the bat is that his hands are clasped, which indicates a level of anxiety, although they are forward. This is also a bid for connection, a bit of report building, and we're going to see the significance of that here in a bit. But Hardy then hangs his head as the officers say, "We're not here to do anything to mess with you, to hurt you." Prior to this, Hardy had said that these officers treat him pretty well. They seem to be very friendly, very great officers. Rapport building. This wanting to establish innocence before anything has been stated about why he is even here. Now, he knows why he's here, the officers know why he's here, but he immediately establishes this innocence through his body language, through some verbiage there, as he tries to tell the officers, there was only one victim, you guys are doing great, you're very friendly, you're treating me well, and the officers are establishing that rapport back to get him to open up and confess and tell why this happened, how this happened in the first place. He is in this interrogation room because his father has been unalived, and the interrogators just need to know more about why this took place.
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing I'll tell you, if there's a particular question or something you don't want to answer, you never have to, okay? And like I say, we're not going to do anything of the crazy stuff you see on TV or anything like that, shine bright lights on you or do anything like that. We just want to talk, okay?
Consider talk, kind of like the officers that you already dealt with said they're all being very kind to you. You know, we just work on it, continue that, okay?
So let me just do a little bit about this. Can you just tell me kind of, I don't know you, give me a little background. Are you from this area your whole life? And where?
I know you though. I mean, like, ever since I could, I think I might have been born here or in St. Pierre. I don't know exactly which town.
Okay.
Now you see him veer away from his baseline, him touching his face. All of this is indications of stress, especially since the nasal tissue swells when we're feeling stress. This could indicate deception, and he's not confident and clear about his answer of even where he was born, which typically someone who has antisocial personality disorder may lie, pathologically lie about anything and everything, things that aren't even relevant to how guilty they might be about something. And that's what we might be seeing here, although I cannot personally diagnose him. That is just what this indicates here, as well as the manipulation that came prior to this, where he establishes this sort of innocence and goodness about him, painting himself as this good person, this friendly person, building some rapport with these interrogators despite not even directly being accused of anything right off the bat. So you see some forms of manipulation along with though through his body language with him touching his face, which we don't typically do unless we're feeling stress. Now, stress alone does not indicate deception. People are anxious in an interrogation room, and that is to be expected, but they might start off being anxious, and just a few indicators here and there do not necessarily mean that you're anxious and stressed because you are being deceptive. It has to come in a cluster and in a certain context of things, such as what we've seen in prior interrogations where the indications of stress came when blame was shifted on the suspect and not so much around anything else. So it tells the interrogators especially that their baseline is not someone who is stressed in this interrogation because of the interrogation itself, but because of what they're being accused of or what that means for them and the shame and guilt that they might feel.
A lot of traumatic events, so possibly, you know, but as of late, you know, my dad has been being weird, and just him, or I don't know, just gaming and all that stuff, giving me technology, and then I just decided to burn it and go on a cruise and drive, come back, and it just got weirder, just real weird, like, and I got scared. Sure, I got scared.
So you see lack of blink rate here. You also see him start to barrier, Now, his clasping of hands and his hands reached out could possibly have been a barrier prior to this, but most likely that is a bit for connection. That is typically what we do. Then he pulls in when it comes to discussion about his father, and that becomes a barrier, a protection and distance between himself and these interrogators. Some sort of guilt and shame he's feeling around this topic. And you see indications of stress. Now, interrogators will sometimes give someone a water because they're being nice. Most of the time, they're giving someone water because that is another indication of stress. When someone is fiddling with their water, grabs that water, it indicates possible deception, especially since our mouth will dry up when we're stressed, when we're telling a lie. So reaching for that water bottle in certain instances is very telling to some interrogators.
And
Okay. So your dad is that Bruce?
Yep.
Is that right? And it's Bruce Traxler?
Yep.
And you guys live together?
Yep.
Bruce Allen?
Since I was in 9th grade, I decided to move over with my dad because he started coming to my games 8th or 9th grade.
Okay.
But yeah, it just got weird to the point where it was just like, I don't want to be around this anymore. And
Sure. Huh. How about your mom? What's her name?
It's also interesting he establishes a difficult past with his father and his father being bizarre, saying negative things about his father, which someone who is not guilty wouldn't need to do, would not need to paint the victim in a negative light. That, again, is not telling in itself that he is being deceptive or guilty of anything. Just that typically we don't do that. We wouldn't feel the need to do that if there's not guilt or shame around this particular person, in this case, his father. And a lot of indications of stress is he has some adapters. He fidgets a little bit, but mostly he has adapters and barriering. He's protective. Now, sometimes interrogators will offer up this justification. Well, you had a traumatic, difficult past, so it would make sense that something would get out of hand and this might happen. Interrogators might offer up this justification, but in this instance, Hardy is throwing that out there right off the bat. I had this difficult, traumatic past, and my dad is bizarre. And this paints himself as a victim and paints his dad as the bad person.
When I was younger, she tried killing me and my brother.
Your mom did?
Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
4th grade.
Oh, that's a tough deal.
Yep.
All right. All right. So you lived with mom up until 9th grade, though?
No, my aunt and uncle.
Okay. And who are they?
Pat and Kate.
Pat and who? Where do they live at?
Center.
Live on the country, right? I think so, yeah. And that's the one that owns the construction company or runs it now, right? Okay, sure.
Well, let's do this. Can you just tell us about, you said it's got weird. I just want to hear a little bit more about that or try to understand that. Can we just go, today's Sunday, okay? Can we just go back the last couple of days, kind of what's been going on and start from there and go through the timeline?
I don't know. He's just been like getting on me about like going into the shower room and taking showers and the weird stuff. Then I don't know. It just shower room, let alone the bathroom, and
He continues to paint himself as this victim of his father, and his father being perhaps a bit tyrannical here. He was oppressive in some manner. So Hardy is now saying, things got weird. I was just innocently trying to shower. But he has now distanced himself. Whereas they started this interrogation, leaned forward, happily telling the officers that they are good people and that he's basically a good person. He starts to barrier and then draw back. And that is typically what we do when we're feeling vulnerable, when we're feeling as if we no longer want to build rapport, connect with someone, then maybe he even wants to leave this room. And of course, most suspects do. And you're seeing a lot of stress, some adapters there as well, as he rubs on his arm a bit. Just a lot of indicators of stress when it comes to talking about his parents and this particular situation.
recently I've just been seeing like secure network on our internet. Somebody's connecting to it or whatever. And I don't know who that is or whatever, but it's kind of, I don't know. And I just asked him about it and he got all weird and it's, I don't know. It's like he was possessed or something.
Okay. So you and your dad live together? Just the two of you? Yeah. And nobody else lives with you?
No.
I also want to note that there are a lot of confirmation glances here. When he keeps saying, and it's just weird, he keeps looking up at the interrogators to make sure they agree they're on the same page, to see if he needs to switch up this narrative, but that they're on the same page, that they're agreeing, that they're responding in a way that means they believe him to some degree.
Oh, and you have any kids or anything of your own or anything? That's a show of any, all right. Okay. Anywhere? Okay. Do you have a girlfriend at all? Currently? Okay. So you guys been living out there? You working anywhere?
Over in Belle Plaine.
Okay. And what do you do there?
I just run the scale house. Trucks come in, I write out tickets for them, and okay. How long you been there? Just
You see what confidence in him looks like when it comes to being asked about his job. His head goes up. He's no longer protective and defensive and distancing and burying there. Instead, he's saying, oh, this is what I do, looking directly at the interrogators, and his blink rate's normal. In other instances prior to this, however, he was looking down, he was fidgeting. All of these are indicators of guilt, of course. Potential deception, as he is not making any eye contact at all. He seems to want to distract himself from what's being said because he doesn't want to say it and he knows he should not be talking about this. Something happened there. So you're seeing a lot of that when he's looking down. Now, looking down in itself is not an indication of deception. Again, in itself, it has to come with clusters, and that with the fidgeting and the fact that he offers asymmetrical body language at one point. He's not making clear eye contact. Those all indicate deception. Now, if someone's looking up that way or down, they're data collecting, they're thinking about, they're recalling information, something along those lines. By him just looking down, not establishing eye contact, except for specific confirmation glances, also indicate that he is trying to control this narrative, which he would not need to do if he was not guilty of something.
I don't know exactly, but
sometime this summer.
okay. Yeah, so you've been on unemployment for a while? Yep. Okay. And is that like a layoff then, or just because it's the time of the year? Is
That time of the year, it's slow. It's very slow, for sure.
Okay. So like, you talked about some stuff your dad's been getting on you about. What has he been getting on you about? I mean, it sounds like you guys have a relationship like this, right? Got some friction?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? I won't put words in your mouth, but is that fair? All right. So
He exudes a lack of confidence in a lot of this. He's not wanting to just tell the interrogators what is taking place, what has taken place. He offers a lot of shrugging, a lot of I don't knows, this body language of defeat, him slumped over, him looking down, this level of shame, and just a huge lack of confidence in what he's telling interrogators.
I just don't know about it. Like, just kind of like, it's one of those things where possibly it's always been going on or not. I don't know, though. I just don't know because...
okay. And then, so something happened last night.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about that? What happened?
We were just talking about life, and I asked him about, his friends, and I talked to him about my friends, and we just he just kept on looking at me. He wouldn't go to bed. He was just staring at me, so I started staring at him, and I'm like, and he started, getting weird, so I was giving him shit back, like,
Attempting to look a bit incredulous, a bit in disbelief, making the situation seem bizarre and weird, portraying his father as someone who was this complete foreign person to him, this complete alien to him, at the point that things got intense, that things ended very poorly, and that he is the victim, that he just asked his father a question innocently, and he doesn't know really why his father did what he did, but it forced his hand. And he is definitely the victim here. Establishing innocence before the interrogators even have to. In some instances, interrogators will offer up, again, justifications. They'll try to tell the suspect that they are a good person. But Hardy here is doing all of that for them, so they just have to continue this friendly conversation and asking the right questions while analyzing how he's moving and what he's doing here and what might catch them off guard. Now, you don't see his hands, they're under the table. He's possibly fidgeting. He probably does have some stress. He has a lot of discomfort. You saw him grab his legs. There's this adapter there, the self-soothing behavior. He's really uncomfortable. And that, again, that doesn't alone indicate deception because you see his shirt sweat. Maybe he's uncomfortable because something happened prior to this interrogation that's making him uncomfortable, and not necessarily the fact that he's in this interrogation or what the interrogation's about. But you do see those adapters that do indicate something going on. That, along with the confirmation glances and his head down, he's in that defensive stance there, hiding this vulnerable part of his body, which we would typically do when we're feeling vulnerable. This withdrawing from the interrogators, this distancing, and him offering up a bunch of unconfident responses. I don't knows, maybes, it just got weird. very vague, very general, and not confident, consistent responses.
So, you know, like, don't do it. Try coming at me. If I'm going to stay here, I want to make sure I'm safe. I want to make sure that I'm safe. And I don't know why I think, you know, Don Callisto. I don't even think it's him, but my dad's always up there, but I don't think.
The audio is also a bit off track here with his movements, and that makes things a bit difficult. But from what I can tell now that Don Clifto is being brought up, he's naming Don Clifto, and he's saying, oh, if I had to stay here, the stop gesture there, this defensiveness, him rubbing his nose, an indication of stress, him pulling back physically, all of this indicating now he's feeling defensive and guilty about something. That doesn't necessarily mean he is guilty of the crime he's being accused of, but guilt and defense about something.
I think it's him, you know, like, but I did what I did, and then, you know, I just decided to burn it, get out of there, and just move on with my life because
Gross, like my whole life, and like just him, you know, like out of all people. And
our family has money, and I just felt like it was, I don't think our family thinks.
Distancing language around the actual crime. I just did what I did. People who are innocent will offer up exactly what took place. They will even use the extreme words, but his reluctance to do this is pretty telling that he's guilty. Now, at this point in the interrogation, everyone knows he is guilty. He knows that they know he's guilty, so he's not having to establish innocence, though he's still trying to. He's still trying to save, to a degree, his sentencing, and he knows whatever he tells his interrogators will determine how severe his sentencing is. And he's also distancing himself from this situation physically because he is feeling a level of guilt. Perhaps no real remorse. You're not seeing grief muscles. You're not seeing sobbing or anger or any kind of passion towards this. Just defensiveness, offering up his own innocence and saying that basically he had to do this, especially if he wanted to get along in his life and get away from this particular situation with his dad, who was being weird, who was perhaps being oppressive, putting more security on the Wi-Fi, on the internet. All of these things paint this negative caricature of his father and makes him seem like the victim.
You know, I don't think our family was doing it for money or anything, but I don't know. I just kind of, when I did it, I said that. I'll be honest, I did sucks. Well, my family, I love everybody, you know, like, I love you, and I've never even met you guys, and
Well, no, a little bit I heard about your background. You're not a bad person.
no, I'm not. You know, I'm a very good person, Christian, Catholic. And I think
There's just some stuff going on at home between you and Dad that was.
There are certain personality disorders that will have such black and white thinking. There's good people, there's bad people, religious people, not religious people, and the religious people are the bad people. At least they know society might think so. And the good people are the religious people in his mind. So he offers yes, I'm good, I'm religious, and you see those hands come back. He's back to establishing rapport, saying he even loves the interrogators, though he's never met them. This could indicate a level of insanity, which perhaps is what he is trying to play up here, or it could just be him building rapport, him saying, I'm a good guy, you're good guys, my father is not a good guy, and making sure everyone is clear which category everyone in this situation fits in. And there are some personality disorders that will do this. People with borderline personality disorder will have this black and white thinking. They'll establish good and bad, and there's no in between, there's no gray area. There's a spectrum of that. Not all people with borderline personality will do that, and I'm not saying he has borderline personality disorder because I can't diagnose him, and I don't see any other indicators here that he may or may not. Just this one thing with those black and white thinking. And that's what we're seeing with him establishing the good and the bad people. These interrogators are good. He's good. He's religious. He loves them. His father's bad. His father's weird. Put more security on the internet. Acting bizarre. Possibly possessed. Anti-religious. Very bad.
Causing some conflict, right? Or it seems that way. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. What was the layout of the building out there? Did you guys each have your own bedroom?
no.
Okay.
And he liked it that way.
Oh, really? Okay. So what was the layout kind of? Was there one bedroom?
Just like, just one room, one big room. And to the point where, you know, I went and got like a shade thing just to put on his chair. And when he'd lay down, he'd just look at me all the time. And then last night he tried to get me to take some sleeping pills.
Okay.
And then I was just like, I'm getting the out of here or whatever. And I just sat there.
His fixating on and complete lack of blink rate when he's telling the interrogators this indicates him needing control over the situation, and him licking his lips very briefly when he's talking about this layout of this room and continuing to play on the oppressive part of his life where allegedly there was this one big room and his father would just stare at him. He had no privacy, no safety, and his father was a bad man and acting weird. And again, all of this led him to and forced his hand to do what he ultimately ended up doing, which he will not name because that brings guilt on himself and that would make him look bad in his mind. That is not socially accepted the way that in his mind Christianity and Catholicism is.
Talking, trying to catch up on life. And then he was like, I gotta give it to you or whatever. And then
I'm not scared of you, blah, blah, blah.
you know, saying, yeah. And I had a knife in my hand just in case because I was scared. And all the Xbox gaming and stuff that he put in front of me because I wasn't,
Now he's offered up a bit of inconsistency here where he says he had this weapon and there's this eyebrow flash around just in case. He wants to emphasize the importance that this was all entirely in defense, and he offers up that his father allegedly tried to give him a sleeping pill, give him something that he potentially did not need, and that his father says, I'm not scared of you, which is an inconsistency because it switches the role of him needing to be defended and protected from his father as opposed to his father needing some sort of defense, being defensive and protective of himself. So he has switched those roles verbally while with his body language trying to continue telling the interrogators, just in case, I had this knife and this guy was just crazy, and emphasizing that with his head and his behaviors. This report building as his hands are clasped in front of him towards the interrogator, that bid for connection there to try to get the interrogators on his side and let them know he's not just this wild, aggressive, rage-filled person that's bad. He's a good person. And on their side, all of them are just good people. And there's this outsider, his father, who is not.
He wanted me to stay there so I'd game and stuff.
So after that, what happened then?
I ended up, me and him got in a fight. He hit my shoulder and
Okay. Do you remember where you?
a bunch of different times, and then right in the heart. And once I did that, it was weird. It was like, I don't know how to explain it. I had my body.
Brief muscles, significance to what he's saying. He looks down briefly, which veers away from his baseline. Something's going on there as he continues to establish rapport and make this seem like a bizarre situation. But he has finally said an extreme word that he stabbed his father, which is not something that I would expect, but there's no other emotion around this. No grief, no indications of trauma or anger retelling these events that indicate that this was an issue of defense, of protection. He's not crying. Normally, if someone ended the life of their parent and they cared about their parent, even if their parent was a bad person, if Hardy was actually of good character, he would naturally feel remorseful. If he had a conscience, says that there's perhaps damage to his amygdala and his prefrontal cortex that could come from trauma, from something else, but you're not seeing any other emotions around this retelling of events. He does, interestingly, say an extreme word.
Just felt whatever was in my heart just kind of
Went away or something?
yeah.
Okay. So when you guys were fighting, what part of the room was that happening in? Do you remember? By the couch or the couch?
Yeah. And then it just escalated.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I love him more than anything, and it sucks.
Like, I never wanted it to be like that. He's a great person. I'm a great person, and I've always loved him, and I've always been there for him. But when he,
Weirding on me like that.
So after you stabbed,
Now you see him start to at least pretend to cry. And my belief is that these are not real tears because he's not sniffling. It's very brief. It changes at a specific time. He's trying to control his narrative, manipulate these interrogators as he has been throughout this entire interrogation. And he looks at these interrogators, which typically, if we are feeling raw emotions, we'll feel vulnerable. We'll withdraw socially and not stare at interrogators or have those confirmation glances to make sure the interrogators are are reacting in a way that we can continue this narrative. That is manipulative, but verbally he's saying, I love my father, he's a great man. Everything he said prior to that tells us he doesn't really feel this way.
Did he go unconscious at some point?
Yeah.
So he wasn't talking or saying anything anymore? Oh, because it's gone. All right. And then what happened?
And then I just burned the place, grabbed my pillow and put it on the stove and got out of there.
Okay. That's how you started the fire, was with a pillow on the stove? Did you use any accelerant, any gas, or anything like that at all?
Well, I just know that there was other stuff in the room that might have
Taken out, like some flammable type.
Also, typically, a crime committed in defense as a need of protection would not result in someone further committing even more crimes, such as burning a place down to perhaps hide evidence. Because once the person is gone, which Hardy has indicated his father was gone at that point, and he has that physical barrier there with that one hand, as he's no longer trying to build a rapport in this particular instance, he's just telling the situation. He very confidently says, and then I burned it and left. Normally, if we're feeling as if we need to defend ourselves, once the person is gone, we no longer need to then cover up our tracks or do anything further to make sure that the person is no longer a threat.
Materials or something like that. So when you say the stove, you mean like a wood burning stove or like the oven? The oven, is it like a gas oven then? Or
and in that place, there's some weird shit in there. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like weird things happen.
Okay.
Weird things happen. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
Can you give an example? I mean, no judgment from us. We're not going to think you're weird or anything for telling it.
So now suddenly he's having to data collect up here, or at least he's pretending to. He's not looking at the interrogators who distance himself, and he has those adapters. All of this indicates that he is being deceptive about weird things happening, trying to play up and control this narrative that things just got weird, he had no choice. I also want to note here that there's a lot of interesting verbiage that points to him being underdeveloped intellectually, that he is childlike, and again, that points to some damage to his prefrontal cortex. Some underdevelopments there. Issue with him being able to feel empathy and do things the way that other people normally would at his age.
I know weird stuff does happen. Just we're interested, right?
I felt like I was eating other people or something like that. Like, he was feeding me shit. Like, he was feeding me some weird shit, and I didn't know what it was. It could have been his semen. It could have been some other shit. I don't know, but he'd always want me to eat his food and like weird shit like that. And you hear
His body language becomes very awkward, veering way away from his baseline here as he now again attempts to look incredulous with a widened eye, but he's looking half down, his chin's down, defensive, protecting himself, feeling vulnerable, which he should not be given the threat is not there. You're not seeing the emotions we should be seeing, the grief muscles, the tears, the anger, anything that you would see had this actually taken place, though his point might be to come off as insane so that interrogators believe he's insane, as he offers up this idea that his father was feeding him people and weird things. He keeps saying the word weird because weird is categorized as bad socially, and that's why he wants to make sure that interrogators know weird, bad, and place those all into the same category. And even though he briefly said that his father was a great person, now he's offering up, well, he was feeding me these things and giving me these things that were weird, maybe even people, or I don't know what it was. Though, had it been any of those things that he is listing, he definitely would have known. But you see all these indicators of deception and stress here because he isn't telling the truth here. I'm going to say allegedly, but all these indications with these adapters, with him protecting this vulnerable part of himself, his blink rate going up, him having to suddenly look up to recollect, whereas earlier it was down, and you're not seeing the specific emotions we're supposed to be seeing here.
You'd hear just souls and stuff in those rooms. Whenever you go out there, you're gonna, And whenever I did that, it was because he did that, and then I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember what time all this started at all? It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so you were fighting at 4 o'clock in the morning? That's when you were...
Me and him were talking all that night, and like, he said something about my friends going missing, that he did it, and just lost it. My family or whatever, I'm just like,
And did that comment that he made, did that make sense to you?
Now he's offering up a new story that his father has allegedly threatened the lives of or taken the lives of his friends, and that this was now no longer a defense thing in protection of himself. He's a good guy that was upset about his friends and his father threatening his friends, or perhaps that he considered his father a threat to himself because his father was a threat to his friends. He mentions 4 a.m., he mentions the sleeping pills. That all starts to come together as perhaps Hardy here had gone into some sort of psychosis, had delusions, and started hearing things. And this is possibly an attempt to play on insanity, to receive an insanity plea. So he's thrown all of these things out there, and someone who is actually insane would not be as controlled about it, as capable of manipulating interrogators in the manner that Hardy here is. And again, you're not seeing all of the remorse and grief and anger and things that we should be seeing in this particular instance. And it offers that this is not a defense thing, and that his tyrannical father was talking to him as counterproductive to the rest of his narrative, because it offers that they were actually having a good relationship. Things were not weird until a certain point, 4 a.m., and suddenly the switch flipped and things were weird. That mixed with the story of his father needing to say that he wasn't afraid of his son, Hardy saying he had this knife just in case, even though they were just talking. All of this starts to add up as to what really took place, and most likely not a defense crime, and him adding to it and very confidently and consistently stating that he then set the place on fire, whereas there are gaps in other parts of the story. It got weird and he's not able to confidently give answers, leaving gaps in this story that someone who is innocent that definitely needed to protect themselves would not have. So I'm going to end this here. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching.